faithfully sharing value and interpreting great books worldwide. Hello, this is Sally's Book Talk. Today, we're exploring the book Li Bai, a biography. Li Bai was a renowned poet from China's Tang dynasty, known as the poet Immortal, who left behind many beloved poems. Which poem by Li Bai stands out most to you? Feel free to comment and share your favorite verses. People often picture Li Bai as mystical, loving wine, indifferent to fame, unyielding to authority, wandering landscapes, and living freely. However, the real Li Bai wasn't so detached. He also chased political success and got tangled in Tang dynasty power struggles. As for that mystical aura, it mostly came from his lifelong pursuit of Taoism and immortality. You could say that studying Taoism and engaging in politics were his two lifelong passions, and it was these seemingly conflicting pursuits that deeply shaped his poetry. The author Li Changji is a famous Chinese literary critic, historian, and translator. He enrolled at Tsinghua University in 1931, studied under philosophers like Zhang Dongsun, Sun Jingyuelin, Feng Yulan, Wu Zuchang, Lin Gang, and Ji Xianlin, and was dubbed one of the four swordsmen of Tsinghua. Besides this book, he wrote stories like Lu Xun critiquing Confucius. This book combines two works the author wrote at different times. The first part examines Li Bai's life and is simply titled Li Bai. The second part, Li Bai, the Taoist poet, is intensely poignant and analyzes his personality. The first focuses on broad historical context, the second on personal details. Together, they give a fuller picture of Li Bai. Li Bai created a vast number of poems, with over 900 surviving today. His poetic style varied greatly across life stages, showing how his works mirror his experiences. Next, I'll break down Li Bai's life into three stages for you. The first stage covers from his birth to age 41, which we call Li Bai's early life. Early Li Bai, this is when he set his two life goals, politics and Taoism, and built the foundation for his poetry. Li Bai was born in 701 AD during the late reign of Empress Wu Zetian. By age 13, Emperor Xuanzang of Tang, Li Longji, took the throne, and Li Bai spent most of his life under this ruler. The birthplace of Li Bai has never been settled. Some say Gansu, some say Sichuan, some say Shandong, and some even claim he was a foreigner. The only certainty is that his childhood was spent in Mangpadao, north of today's Mianyang city in Sichuan. Now, there's still a Tai Bai shrine in that place, said to be Li Bai's home. There's little record about Li Bai's parents and family. It's said his father originally had no surname, but after seeing a plum tree outside, he took the surname Li. And because he lived in Sichuan as a guest, he was called Li Ke. Li Bai rarely mentioned his parents in his writings, only once. Mentioning his youth, his father once had him read Sima Shengru's Fu poetry. Li Bai started reading and writing very early. He once wrote that at 15, he read extraordinary books and composed Fu surpassing Sima Xiangru, meaning around age 15, he read many fascinating texts and wrote better than that poet. Therefore, the author believes Li Bai must have had a period of intense study in his youth, because most of his later life was spent wandering. If he hadn't built a foundation early on, he couldn't have written such refined poetry later. In ancient times, diligent study was essential for becoming an official. However, the books Li Bai first encountered likely included many on Taoism. He said he recited Liu Jia at age 5. These are Taoist theories. Around age 20, Li Bai also lived in seclusion for years with a hermit named Dongyanzi in Min Mountain, now Qingcheng Mountain near Chengdu. Li Bai's life ideal of retreating to study Taoism likely took root then. Li Bai left Sichuan at age 24 and never returned. Thus, any poems he wrote about Sichuan scenery were mostly from his youth. What impression did Sichuan leave on him? Mainly a sense of wondrous peril and majestic beauty. This imbued his poetry with the spirit of independence and fearlessness. For example, The Hard Road to Shu. The poem reads, "Peaks upon peaks, less than a foot from the sky, Withered pines hang upside down on sheer cliffs. Torrents and waterfalls clamor in rivalry. Rocks crash down cliffs. Thunder in 10,000 valleys. But what he cherished most about Sichuan might be the moon he saw in its mountains, as he praised it in Ode to the Moon over Mount Imei. Half a moon over Mount Emei in autumn. Its reflection flows with the Pingchang River. Whenever Li Bai mentioned Sichuan, he felt a strong hometown emotion. Whenever he thought of home, he never forgot its moon. Only then can we understand him. The essence of quiet night thoughts. Moonlight before my bed, I take for frost on the ground. Raising my head, I gaze at the mountain moon. Lowering it, I think of home. The version we know, Raising My Head, I Gaze at the Bright Moon, is a later adaptation. The original should be Gazing at the Mountain Moon. When leaving Sichuan, Li Bai felt reluctant, inspiring his famous poem, Departing Early from Baidi City.
At dawn, I left Baidi veiled in colored clouds, 1,000 miles to Jiangling back in a day. While apes on both banks screamed endlessly, my light boat passed 10,000 mountains.
In the morning, he was at Fenji, in Sichuan. By evening, he reached Jiangling. How swiftly the boat traveled. Through depicting this rapid shift of time and space, we see the poet's longing for home. Nevertheless, Li Bai resolutely left Sichuan. What did he leave to do? He himself declared, "Knowing a true man must have ambitions spanning the four directions, I took up my sword, left my homeland, and traveled far from family." It was with great life ambitions that he left home. Beyond personal fame and fortune, Li Bai wanted to benefit people and country, a sentiment expressed throughout his writings. For example, to promote the principles of Guan and Yan, strategize imperial methods, exert my wisdom, become a key minister, bringing stability to the realm and unity to the nation. His ambitions were grand, aiming straight for chancellor positions like Guanzhong and Yan Ying to govern the world. So he actively pursued political activities. These political activities meant submitting letters to influential officials, hoping for recommendations. You might wonder, why didn't Li Bai take the imperial exams?
The book doesn't specify, but a credible theory suggests his political status disqualified him. 5 troops, we hear, with
Tang dynasty law barred sons of criminals and merchants from imperial exams. Li Bai was likely a merchant's son. Records show he left Sichuan with 300,000 gold coins, squandered within a year aiding friends, an impossible sum for ordinary families. While his family had wealth, merchant status brought no pride in agriculture-focused Han society. Moreover, pursuing an official career likely explains why Li Bai rarely mentioned family in his writings. In short, with the exam path closed, Li Bai chose an alternative route into government service. Seeking recommendations, this was a common path for scholars in feudal societies. For example, in his Letter to Han Jingzhou, Li Bai referenced the story of Lord Pingwan from the Warring States period, where Mao Sui volunteered himself. Mao Sui stood out among 3,000 soldiers and said, if urgently needed, he'd offer his humble service. That is, he was willing to serve others wholeheartedly as long as they recommended him for official posts and helped him climb the ladder. Yet Li Bai frequently offended people with arrogant words and actions, then had to grovel and apologize to clear up misunderstandings. And like in his letter to Li Changshi of Anzhou, it was an apology for drunken disrespect. Saying things like, easily showing a pleasant face, lifelong shamelessness, daring to offer a humble apology at the gate, hoping for forgiveness. So, Li Bai's conduct wasn't popular with the bureaucratic class, making him anxious and fearful, showing how badly he wanted an official career.
His desire for office was intense, but with that path blocked, he turned to studying Taoism.
In Li Bai's era, Taoism was booming, and seeking immortality through it became a trend. These folks formed their own world with unique joys. Plus, Li Bai's love for freedom made Taoism a natural fit for him. In his 30s, he met famous Taoist figures like Dan Chushang and Hu Zian. But even while practicing Taoism with them, he couldn't hide his frustration over career failures and unrecognized talent. He felt with his skills, he could deal with princes as equals when active, or mock them when idle. Basically, relying on his own abilities, he could treat nobles and elites as peers, or even look down on them.
Later, Li Bai wandered north to Taiyuan, then to Jining in Shandong, and south to the Jiangsu-Zhejiang area.
Everywhere he went, he met local celebrities and eccentric scholars.
But Li Bai couldn't shake off his arrogant and unrestrained nature. The bureaucratic class didn't welcome him. He himself said, "The world sees me as always odd. Hearing my grand words, they sneer," meaning he didn't fit in and they mocked his bragging. So Li Bai had self-knowledge, but he stubbornly clung to his fantasies. He liked to compare himself to a giant rock, as in the giant rock rises with the wind one day, soaring 90,000 miles. Don't look down on people.
Who knows if I might soar like a rock someday?
See how arrogant Li Bai was. This arrogance in his poems shows a firm and vigorous power. At this time, Li Bai's desire for politics outweighed studying Taoism. Politics and Taoism. To us, these are two completely different life pursuits. But Li Bai believed he could combine both. Excel in politics, become a chancellor to save people, then retire to study Taoism and live freely like an immortal. He most admired Lu Zhonglian from the Warring States period, who used his eloquent tongue to defuse tense situations on battlefields, solving rulers' problems and avoiding bloodshed. But in the end, he refused rewards from kings and retired freely to the East Sea. See, Lu Zhonglian's life was Li Bai's ideal, so he often expressed admiration for him in poems. Along with his hometown, Shandong was also cherished. He praised Qi for having such a gallant man, Lu Lian the most superb, and said, "Who says Mount Tai is high? It bows to Lu Lian's integrity. Who says Qin's army is vast? It's crushed by Lu Lian's tongue." However, Lu Zhonglian's integrity is such that even Qin's unstoppable army was destroyed by his strategy. He was determined to emulate Lu Zhonglian, even if it meant failure.
So he said, "I'll go."
And without words, content like a tumbleweed. Soon, Li Bai's opportunity came. A Taoist friend of Li Bai's was summoned to the capital by Emperor Xuanzong, and this friend recommended Li Bai. At the same time, the emperor's sister, Princess Yuzhen, who had become a Taoist nun, also strongly recommended Li Bai. Thus, Li Bai received the emperor's edict, inviting him to the capital. He penned the famous line, "Laughing skyward as I leave, am I one to dwell among weeds?" and proudly headed to Chang'an. That year was 742 AD. Li Bai was 42, and his life entered a completely new phase. In this phase, Li Bai seemed to have achieved his life ideal, but he himself abandoned it. Upon arriving in Chang'an, the reception was grand. Legend says Emperor Xuanzong stepped down from his palanquin to greet him, hosted a meal, praised him highly, and personally stirred the soup, saying, "I've long known your fame, sir." Ooh. If not for his inherent virtue, how could he act thus? Emperor Xuanzong first appointed him as a Hanlin Academy scholar, then as Zhongshu Sharon, essentially the emperor's secretary. The emperor seemed to value Li Bai outwardly, but actually treated him as a cultured plaything. Once, when peonies bloomed in the palace, the emperor and consort Yang summoned Li Bai to improvise poems for their amusement. Thus emerged the famous Chimping Diao trilogy. Clouds remind me of her dress, flowers of her face. Spring breeze caresses railings, dewdrops glow. If not seen atop Jade Mountain, we'd meet by moonlit jasper terrace. A crimson bloom with fragrant dew, futile longing for divine lovers. Who in Han Palace could compare? Poor flying swallow with new makeup. Famed flower and beauty delight each other, earning the emperor's smiling gaze, explaining spring's boundless sorrow, leaning by north balustrade of Aloes Pavilion. Li Bai lingered at court, sometimes drunkenly causing scenes, once making powerful eunuch Gao Lishi remove his boots. Dufu's poem describes this debauched, muddled period. Li Bai, with wine, crafts poems by hundreds, sleeps in Chang'an taverns, Summoned by the Son of Heaven, he boards no boat, declaring, "I'm the wine immortal." Like many literati who infiltrated power circles, Li Bai produced flattering works like Qingping Diao during this time. But this life wasn't his true pursuit. Court restrictions and political exclusion made him realize pure tassels stain easily, pristine snow finds no harmony, meaning his high standards isolated him. A free spirit at heart, walking on thin ice, he faced constant slander from petty minds, so he again envied leisurely hermits, like Yang Guang and Shailing Yang, achieve merit, then retreat to fish, longing to accomplish something quickly, then retire like them to mountains and rivers. His conflict between politics and Taoism resurfaced. Yet Li Bai clearly saw the court's corruption. Emperor and consorts reveled, cockfighting, palace ball games. Powerful ministers like Li Linfu, Yang Guozhang, and Gao Lishi dominated. Grand carriages raised dust darkening noon roads. Nobles hoard gold, mansions pierce clouds. Cockfighters parade gloriously. Breath clouds the rainbow, pedestrians tremble.
These powerful ministers owned half the capital's property. Even those like Gao Lishi, who accompanied the emperor in cockfighting, became high officials. Their very breath could stir the clouds.
For an ambitious man like Li Bai, achieving merit was extremely difficult. Like the tiny Jingwei bird vainly carrying wood to fill the sea, he had patriotic fervor but no opportunity to act. So he leaned toward the other side of his conflict, retirement. In his third year in Chang'an, he resolutely resigned and left. Emperor Xuanzong readily agreed. Such a drunken, unrestrained man might cause trouble any time. Better to let him go early. A contemporary poet said Li Bai left singing and laughing, but who could understand his complex feelings then? Li Bai couldn't truly laugh heartily over his political failure. It weighed on him. The ideal he pursued for years seemed achieved, yet clearly not what he truly wanted, so he abandoned it. After leaving Chang'an, Li Bai began wandering again. Early in his wanderings, he channeled his political frustration into grand poetic passion. The timeless masterpiece Bring in the Wine was written then. Let's revisit the vigorous melancholy and exuberance Li Bai expressed. See how the yellow river's waters descend from heaven, rushing seaward, never to return. See how bright mirrors and high halls mourn white hair. Morning's black silk turns to evening snow. When life delights, drink your fill. Don't let gold cups face the moon idle. Heaven made me talented, I'll be used. Spent gold returns 1,000-fold. Bills, drums, fine food mean little. I wish to stay drunk, never sober. Saints and sages through the ages are lonely. Only drinkers leave names. My dappled horse, my furs worth a fortune. Call the boy to trade them for fine wine. With you I'll melt eternity's sorrow. Because of political failure, he realized bells and drums weren't precious, thus denying everything, preferring to drown sorrows in wine. Yet he remained self-assured. Heaven made me talented. I'll be used. And he showed his boldness. Spent gold returns 1,000-fold, taking his dappled horse and furs to trade for wine to melt eternity's sorrow. But he still held political hope. The flame of his ambition hadn't died. Thus he wrote, lying high on East Mountain, I'll rise to aid the people. But it was too late, and he had no means. So Li Bai turned his pent-up passion to studying Taoism. He said he studied Taoism since youth, explored famous mountains, and often dreamt of roaming immortal peaks, meaning he studied even in dreams. And he seemed accomplished, receiving a Taoist register in Shandong. Taoism. A Zenlu is a Taoist document inscribed with celestial deities' names and various talismans. Taoists receive Zenlu from masters only after achieving certain spiritual cultivation. His immortal aura likely formed then, and Taoist and mythical elements increased in his poetry. For example, verses like Tao's mystery eludes expectation, sacred texts hide in cavern heavens, farewell, staff of green bamboo, singing along Niaziyan, described his Taoist life. Besides Taoism, another gain was meeting Du Fu, a timeless moment in Chinese literary history. They met in Dan County, Kaifeng. Li Bai was mid-40s, Du Fu just over 30, but age mattered little. They often drunkenly shared quilts in autumn, walked hand in hand by day. Others scorned Li Bai's drunkenness, but Du Fu admired his childlike authenticity after wine and sympathized with his political frustrations, calling him a towering talent unfulfilled, virtuous yet friendless. Even after parting, Du Fu continually followed Li Bai's news. Li Bai later reminisced, "Missing you like wind river's torrents, vast, uncontainable, expressing spousal-like longing." Yet Li Bai rarely expressed romantic feelings in poetry. Despite lifelong wandering, he married 4 times. His first wife was a former chancellor's granddaughter. Later wives left only surnames. Whether from unhappy marriages or his free spirit clashing with domesticity remains unknown. And that. Ultimately, records of this aspect are nearly blank. 4 marriages gave him 2 sons and 2 daughters, toward whom he overflowed with fatherly love. Poems reveal his longing. My 2 sons east of Lugate, parted for years. Old friends gone there, tears flow like springs. My fair daughter from Pingyang picks flowers by peach trees. Picking without seeing me, tears stream like springs. Little son named Boken, shoulder high to his sister, walking beneath peach trees, who comforts their backs. As a father, he described their height, looks, and lives so vividly, clearly loving, though his ideals lay beyond family. He still chose to wander, sword in hand. After parting with Du Fu, Li Bai drifted to Shanxi, possibly to Beijing, and finally wandered south to Jiangnan. During this time, he experienced poverty and the fickleness of human relationships. Enduring hardship relentlessly, cold winds pierce thin clothes, hands cold as ice, old friends show no compassion. Anxiety would rather be exhausted, bone-chilling cold, frozen to the core, yet anxious friends offer no help. By this time, Li Bai was 54 years old, 11 years since he left Chang'an. Tang society was utterly corrupt, and years of wandering deepened Li Bai's understanding of the ruler's cruelty and evil. First, aggressive wars. Li Bai strongly opposed these in many works, often using women's voices to protest husbands going to war. For example, Moonlight over Chang'an, sound of pounding clothes from thousands of homes, autumn wind blows endlessly, always longing for Jade Gate Pass. When will the barbarians be pacified, so my husband ends his distant campaign? Sometimes he directly wrote about war's cruelty, opposing senseless conflicts, knowing soldiers are instruments of evil. Sages use them only when necessary. In 751 AD, Li Bai vehemently opposed the Tang campaign against Yunnan. Who wanted to invade Yunnan? Not the common people, not the soldiers, but Yan Guozhang, leader of the corrupt ruling class. Historically, soldiers refused to go, so they tricked the poor by promising grain, then bound and sent them to the Yunnan front. What was the outcome? 200,000 perished. Soon after, famine from the war struck Chang'an. Prices soared, and people suffered immensely. Li Bai described the scene. Corpses bleeding, the dead everywhere, war leaving bodies strewn across fields, rivers of blood. He also said, in Xianyang, tears shatter the world. People are scarce. Though you have bushels of jade, they're worthless compared to a plate of grain. In Chang'an, people died in battle or of starvation. No amount of gold was as useful as a plate of food. Yet, such brutal wars allowed Yan Guozhang's henchmen to rise in rank. Li Bai saw that fame and wealth were desirable, but gained this way were shameful. With politics so rotten, why cling to it? Thus Li Bai's conflict between politics and Taoism resolved itself naturally. We hear him sing, "Since youth, I wished to flee to the 5 lakes. Seeing the Min River and sparse bells and tripods, I longed to escape the foul political whirlpool. Now, more determined, so be it, I'd rather wander and drift." However, the An Lushan rebellion soon erupted. This was 755 AD. Li Bai was 55 years old. In his twilight years, Li Bai was once again swept into political turmoil until his death. This marks Li Bai's final life stage. For the rebellion's causes, listen to Sally's earlier abandoned Chang'an episode. After the rebellion began, people opposed Emperor Xuanzang's non-resistance and flight to Sichuan. Though Xuanzang's regime was corrupt, people refused to suffer under barbarian invaders. Citizens challenged him. Your palace is here, your ancestors' tombs are here. How can you abandon them?
If you all go to Sichuan, what becomes of Central Plains people?
Xuanzang refused and summoned the crown prince, who also declined, claiming filial duty. A compromise was reached. Wanzong fled to Sichuan. The prince retreated to Ningxia. This prince became Emperor Suzong in the rebellion's second year. What was Li Bai's stance? He stood firmly with commoners against Wanzong's non-resistance policy. In verse he challenged, "Who but your majesty should eliminate the arch-criminal?" He raged, "Two saints! Flee! The capital shattered, both capitals ruins, bones piled mountain high. What crime have commoners committed?" Even his famous Hard Road to Shu was political satire. Why, traveler from afar, do you come here? Though Chengdu delights, better return home early. Don't revel in Chengdu. Hurry back to Chang'an. Li Bai's mood turned gravely serious, filled with grief and indignation. He lamented, "Customs shift to barbarian tongues, like Shen Baoshu who wept 7 days till hair whitened. The nation occupied by barbarians. Like Wu Zixu, after his country's fall, he wept 7 days till hair turned white." The poet's patriotic fervor ignited. He burned to reclaim the heartland. "Gripping sword, I chant at night. Ambition spans miles daily. Swear to slay the monsters, purify Luoyan's waters." Driven by fierce patriotism, Li Bai joined Prince Yang's campaign, plunging back into political turmoil. But this political involvement differed fundamentally. Previously for fame, now for patriotism, Prince Yang Li Lin was Emperor Xuanzang's 16th son. When the emperor fled to Sichuan, he ordered him to lead troops east to defend the southeast. When he reached Mount Lu with his army, hearing of Li Bai's fame, he invited him as an advisor. Li Bai, then filled with patriotic fervor, gladly seized this opportunity and joined.
But within 2 months, Prince Yang was defeated and killed, not by An Lushan, but by his brother Emperor Suzong, who feared Prince Yang would challenge his rule if established in the southeast, so ordered him to attend Xuanzong in Sichuan.
When Prince Yang disobeyed, Suzong immediately accused him of rebellion, dispatched 3 regional commanders to encircle him, and swiftly crushed his forces. With Prince Yang's army destroyed, Li Bai, as his advisor, became a political prisoner jailed in Xunyang, Jiangxi, later released after rescue efforts. Some recommended Li Bai for office, but Suzong refused due to his involvement in Prince Yang's rebellion. It was 757 AD. Li Bai was 57. That September, Suzong recaptured Chang'an, shamefully, with Huihe troops who demanded gold, silk, and captives as payment. Afterwards, Li Bai's case reopened, exiled to Yelan for the Prince Yang affair. Now Zuni Guizhou, the journey from Chang'an was brutal. Many died en route. Du Fu, himself adrift for years, grew deeply anxious upon hearing this. Du Fu wrote, "Long unseen, Li Sheng feigns madness, truly pitiable. The world wants him dead. I alone cherish his talent." He constantly feared Li Bai might be dead. Feigning madness, truly pitiable. Old friend enters my dreams, knowing I remember, adding, "A name for millennia, lonely posthumous affairs." This felt like a dirge.
But Li Bai hadn't died.
He was pardoned at the 3 Gorges when Suzong established a crown prince and declared amnesty. And though pardoned, Li Bai was 59, just 3 years from death, and began his final wanderings. By then, he saw through everything, yet detested it all. Thus, Li Bai's poetry from this period brimmed with despondency. He wrote, "Clouds and moons and head temples reek of monkish air. Mountains and waters never satisfy. Even his beloved landscapes dissatisfied him now. He even wanted to destroy everything. I'll shatter Yellow Crane Tower for you. You overturn Parrot Isle for me." The immortals he once admired now seemed unreliable. Taoism and politics, his 2 life ideals, both ended in failure. Wealth and immortality both wasted. His later years were agony, so he surrendered to fate. Destiny rules thus. Is heaven unkind? Grief at the bridge, life, death to fate resigned. Yet he still cared for his nation. After pardon from long exile, he still lost sleep over state affairs, sighing at midnight, always grieving for my country. Even the year before death, when Li Guanbi marched against Shi Siming's son Shi Chaoyi, Li Bai tried volunteering, but illness halted him. His patriotism lasted till his final breath. The next year, Li Bai died in Dongtu, southern Anhui. On his deathbed, he still compared himself to a rock in deathbed song. The great rock flies, shaking 8 wings, mid-sky broken, strength failing. Its wind stirs 10,000 ages. 10,000 ages lift Fusong trees, hanging left. When later men hear this, since Confucius died, who weeps for me? His final work brimmed with unfulfilled ambition. Worldly eyes might deem Li Bai unsuccessful. Most of his life was pain and contradiction, longing to save the nation but lacking power. Seeking immortality ended in emptiness, yet this profound suffering birthed timeless poetry. The author notes, Li Bai's life mirrors ours, shared joys and sorrows, though his were more intense. He poured these extremes into poetry. Thus we find liberation through his verses. This explains his enduring appeal. Share your thoughts on Li Bai in comments. That concludes our reading of Li Bai, a biography. Notes below. Until next time.